My God, it's the 31st of October 2004 and we are at the last week of 28 Days on an Island. Hello darling, 28 Days on an Island, a celebration of our community. We've worked so hard for this. We're at the Scotland Island Fair today. We've got 1 week to go at the festival.
Bring your shot, no banging the hell out of it. Next one round, bang, little shots.
Hey guys, what are you selling today?
Toffee apple. Heavy look.
It's the parade at the end of the day. There's a lantern parade this evening. There are...
So you did it, you actually did it sideways.
Camera, these ones come off.
Way you go.
Gets them off.
That's not good.
And pink here, but not the mat, that broke.
Catch it.
This is not as... At this point it's 4:30 in the afternoon and it's really, this is just the part of the day when everything feels like it's going on. But what we're doing down here at the moment is we're setting up the fire sculpture, the poles for the fire sculpture, but also the 2 stands for the lanterns, where that will all get set later on for the final end of the procession. Maggie and Phil and Dave are getting the puppets finalised up in the fire shed. Up in the fire shed, they've been putting out flaming Weber barbecues with and doing fire extinguisher demos. I had a go at that, so now I know how to do that. I'm very happy. The other thing we've had over here is Vanessa doing her dance workshop. There's been a whole stack of people, women, men, children, all just doing this incredible Afro-Cuban dance routine. The other thing we've got over on stage is we've got King Baylor, but I guess, look, we've also got Matt coming up. Matt Trapnell's going to do the music for the procession. The Fire Brigade are up there working away on their open day and what they're about, but they're also heavily involved with this procession. They're totally supporting it. The whole outcome that we were aiming for and striving for here is actually truly happening. We've got, I've just had a great conversation with Charlie from the Fire Brigade yesterday saying, hey, you know, sometimes that these groups haven't really worked together and everybody's been quite separate, and we don't feel like that's happening anymore, and we're really glad about that. This has been kind of an historical thing, I guess, in terms of why that's occurred, that it's being left behind. So it really is, I think, at the onset of just a different way of this community relating with each other, and to some extent also projecting who we are and what we're about.
Some drink. That's a little thing I wanna do out east. I'm nothing too emotional, my goodness. You can be serious in a room full of jackknife highs. Stop talking about the years. You sound like new death, yeah. Now we both on in my fashion. Players and folks scratch my head. Down in the sky, smiling plane. Where will I go on holiday? Oh, where the punches down the aisle. Down the street, big smoke roll by. Yeah, I'm chewing nice and grinning. Yeah, I'm spewing off and spinning. Yes, billions as usual in my corner of the kitchen. Hey, you lose that friend before we go anywhere. Why so if I see you're alone? Stop banging out the band, 'cause you sound like Louis that, yeah. All my friends are stubborn, but they're fun to have around. On the chairs, out on the concrete.
So what do we have here?
We've got gyoza. Gyoza is a special dish that comes from China to Korea to Japan. And this particular recipe comes from Okinawa, from a little woman in Kyoto who made the best gyoza in the city. And she passed it on to me, and now it's on Scotland Island. Hey, it is showing us this.
seen how you procrastinate. Time is of the essence. But you're playing nice and little text. Realize that you're on your own. There's no one home. Everyone turns up fireworks, expecting you're done, but you're not that fun. There's no time to get to. There's no you got to my eyes wandered, but my feet stood still. My eyes wandered, but my feet stood still.
Sitting on the bus, watching the rain run down the window. Your embrace feels so perfect. I close my eyes as I say goodbye at your door once more.
In the end, I had to say to him, I was actually doing an article for a magazine, not the book, to get in, past his minders essentially. And then it sort of gathered a bit of momentum. It was 80 said for them a book that might come out in 2 or 3 years' time wasn't as exciting as a good headline in a newspaper. Anyway, tenacity, and I kept trying, and then Keating himself had a bit of a change of heart about 87, when I think he was beginning to think, well, you know, I might get to the lodge one day, and perhaps a book might not be such a bad thing. So we had quite a few sessions, and I spoke to a lot of other people. And for me, as a person not born in Australia, not knowing anything about the Labour Party in depth, and certainly not knowing about the New South Wales left and right and how much they hate each other, it was quite a journey. And my dog Missy is not really into politics at all. And I discovered a depth of hatred and hostility that was really quite amazing. And anyway, finally got to meet.
faction. She's in the left-wing faction.
I think she is left-wing. Well, she's a country girl. She should be National Party. Anyway, and I got to know the Keating family, which again was very difficult because they're very, very private. And he's, should I say, a very contradictory person in the sense that he's neither as good as he thinks he is, nor as bad as his enemies have painted him to be, I think is the best way to put it. But a great believer in his own abilities, or he was then anyway. There was one interview that was a real sort of turning point, which was...
What started Bird, and I've also got with this new exhibition I'm doing too, which is sort of about birds, but it was a bit coincidental. That birds started to become like symbols to me, and the last few years I've been working with birds as in the background of all my paintings. They've just appeared somehow, sort of getting bigger and more kind of loud, I guess. And so when I was in Mexico 2 years ago, and in a very small fishing village with a friend where he'd been doing actually ceramic workshops with the local people. So it was a very small fishing village, and about the second or third day we were there, this huge big sort of seabird just appeared on the shore, and it was doing nothing. It didn't move, it didn't fly, and it seemed to not be able to do anything except just sit there staring out to sea. And I was really worried about it, so I went down every day and started to sit with it and kind of tried to move it along. And when dogs came, and you know, it was all I was a bit worried about it, but it just seemed to stay there. And so I started writing this story about it, and about myself talking to this bird. And so I turned the person into a boy, but that was because I didn't want anyone to think it was about me. But it sort of became, so eventually we had to leave, and so I never knew what happened to this bird. But a friend since, who's a biologist here, told me he thought it was a red-footed booby from the Galapagos Islands that had somehow gotten off course, perhaps. Because it was the west coast of Mexico. Yeah, and so that's how Bird came about. Yeah.
Which came first for you in your professional life? Were you writing first, or drawing, or?
definitely drawing, definitely painting first. But I've always loved writing. I've always kept diaries. I've always written stories. I've always written poems. As a kid, I used to write a lot of poems.
No, I was born in Melbourne.
Oh, okay.
And then I lived in different places because Dad worked with Caltex Oil Company. And we lived in Western Australia and then in Tasmania. And in Tasmania, like, I learned to sail, I had my own rifle, I had my own crayfish pots, I had my own fishing nets. And this was the age of between 8 or 9 to about 13. And we lived in a little place that looked right out to the sea, so the horizon line crossed across our consciousness all the time of the sea. And then my father knew that he'd be moved to New South Wales sooner or later. And at that time, Tasmanian schools were not so sharp as they are now. And he's down here when I was a kid of 13, and we came down McCarrs Creek Road in his car. I can still remember it to this day. And suddenly, where the road bottoms out, I saw that emerald green water, and I've never forgotten it. It just locked me into place from that time onwards. And it was inevitable that sooner or later I had to come and live here. That's all. That's very simple.
So how long have you actually...
Since about the age of about 15, we lived at the Royal Motor Yacht Club, then at Bayview, and then finally in 1970 to wonderful Lovetts. And
never looked back.
No. And I think it's about of Church Point, and it was done in surveyor's copperplate writing, and written across Church Point was Warra Warra. And when you check Warra Warra out in Aboriginal language, it means shoot through. Go away. I mean, it's important, you see, because Church Point's a landing place. And when we white fellas came in our boat, when was it, Craig? 1790, really. I mean, it was soon on after 1788. You can see it moving into Church Point and pointing to this place, and all the black people who would have used it as a take-off place just in the same way we do. It's a brilliant place, protected from the nor'easters. We're getting the backsides blown out of us here, but Church Point's clear now. They would have pointed and said, "What's this called?" And they would have said, "Warra Warra," and they wrote it down.
Okay, so to go back to my introduction, so you Craig, and Rick, you both been here for well on 30 plus years, and you for close to 50, yeah. So in that time, maybe you can describe from an architectural point of view and a landscape point of view how things have changed for better or for worse. And do you want to start, Craig?
That's too depressing. It's very interesting in that I'm personally interested in change and how things evolve. I have a natural interest in history and unravelling that history, and I actually worked on the heritage study here when we divided off from Warringah, and so I got to know a little bit more about the place, and I'm continually surprised that I find more and more information as we go along. The change is like we're actually sitting on one of the biggest middens on Scotland Island under this tent, and this tree here, it's probably an Aboriginal tree, so that it's always fascinating to keep finding more and more information about the place, and I become distressed when places lose their naturalness. And for me, it's a personal thing, and I think there's some of that going on, and I'm kind of disturbed that it might become too suburban. And the thing that attracted me in the first place was sort of living in the bush, the sense of a hideout or a hideaway, which goes back to the sort of lawlessness of the early days and rum smuggling and what have you. There's this sense of getting into nature and hiding out, and I've certainly tried to do that for the time that I've been here. But sometimes people discover me, I try and hide out all the time. And my grandmother, a long time ago, did a little painting for me, which has got a sort of a water scene, a bit of an island and a sailing boat. And she wrote on a Craig's Hideaway when I was about 7 or something, and it sort of fits Scotland Island very well. So I've got it stuck in my studio. And that sort of image of escaping to somewhere natural and escaping the sort of homogenisation of suburban development that we're getting all around Australia. And I think we should try and keep the distinctive qualities of this place. And I feel it's being fettered away at the edges a little bit.
All these houses have been built in the 1980s. There was a big building boom, and they said about 170 houses have been built in 1980. But before there was, you could walk through the bush long time until you saw some houses. And I fell in love straight away with the island, and I decided this will be my final place of living. And I find the mixing of culture and pushing forward and the fight for a good life with the nature and with to live everything as long as possible as we can in the first state, in the natural state. This I found this will be my form of striving when I grow up. Sorry when I'm not so quick with my speech, but I was a little bit better when I was younger. And especially when I'm tired, then it doesn't go so fast. I think we don't have to have the feeling we are missing something on culture, so we can have everything these days. And besides being careful what all the people before me thought and mentioned, I think this is the only thing what we want. When I was a very young child, I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be, of course, the greatest dancer in the world. And I got it until the professional state. My father said, you can do whatever you feel, but you have to have something for your security. And he made me studying a second profession, and otherwise he wouldn't support me. So I thought, what is the best? A second profession, teacher for movement, teacher for sport, and or the physical education. And so I did both. I was a dancer and physical education teacher in the high school for 12 years in Germany, in Munich. And we had to, in Germany, every child had to do the last school exam in physical education as well, and in sport, not only in the things what our brain does. Now, I tried my best. The inspector went to our headmistress. We had 3,000 girls in Munich, and he said, I don't know what it is with the classes of Mrs. Engler. I have the feeling they are dancing over the hurdle and over he saw some difference because half of the time we did dance.
Okay, but just one very quick question from the back, and then we're going to have to really tie up.
Yeah, Trudy doesn't blow her own trumpet very often, nor does she probably realise. But what was that university degree you got when you were 70, Trudy?
Beg your pardon?
What was the university degree you obtained when you were 70?
None. I made physical education and Master of Physical Education in Germany, and when I came to Australia, I couldn't get employed as a teacher for physical education in 12 years in middle of Europe because I was not good enough for Australia. And so as they said, I have to study 4 years more Australian physical education and schoolwork and teaching, and then I would be eventually get a job. And I didn't do this, but they used me as a teacher when another teacher is sick also, and I was nearly full-time employed, but for many, many years.
One of these on? Is this on?
And Penny talked about her relationship with my mum. That's spiritual contact. The only time that Penny ever met Mum was at her funeral when her coffin was open. But yet Penny often described my mother. And these are the kind of things that my people have done their stories and based their stories. It's about basing their stories on spirit. I have a little thing that I call, when I get a message from spirit, I call it spiritual email. It's not something like here on my hip, you know, the old mobile, you know, where it costs you money. But the spiritual email that I get, it's through connectedness. Through connectedness in the land, where I was taught and how I was taught to respect it. The waters, and when I say waters, I don't mean just drinking water. There's lots of water that we must be grateful for.